everybody. This is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and over there is the Yago to my Mr. Mixplix. Sorry, that is a reference to Gilbert Godfrey roles in animation because he just passed away recently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I found that on what was it, like Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Bummer. You know, a weird, annoying voice, but I could have said the Geico duck. Goose? Whatever that
Affleck?
is.
Affleck. Geico has a
Is he a duck or is he a goose in that?
He's a duck. Oh, okay. No, he might be. He's a white goose. He's a swan. I don't know. I don't know the difference between a duck, swan, and a goose, Josh. I'll be honest with you. It's not my expertise.
Well,
you know what is my, you know what is my expertise?
We're getting way too off topic here to start the show.
Speaking
Gilbert Godfrey passed away recently, that was
speaking of untimely deaths, our thoughts and prayers go out to Dwayne Haskins, family, friends, etc.
Yeah, he was hit by a truck.
Yeah, awful.
I don't know if he was like physically like hit directly by the truck or if he was just in a car accident that was involving a truck. I don't remember. It was like a week ago. We haven't done a show in 3 weeks because there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about.
Welcome back, Josh.
I'm going to steal the news from Chris because he wanted to go first tonight. So
that's right.
Yeah. Consider the news stolen. Former Colts running back Marlon Mack has signed with the Texans. Chris, how do you feel about that? Me personally, I kind of like it. Like that was kind of the spot or a similar spot that Marlon Mack I was kind of hoping he would go to in the sense that he doesn't have a lot of competition. I think David Johnson's still there, but he is kind of used.
Yeah, in fact, he wasn't the name I was going to invoke. I was going to ask if the guy that came from Denver was still there. God, why am I blanking?
Phillip Lindsey? No.
He's not still there? Okay.
I don't think so.
I absolutely love it from an NFL, from a Mac perspective, from a Houston Texans perspective, from a fantasy perspective. Gosh, I hope he gets some productivity. I mean, me and you are a little higher than others on the quarterback there, Davis Mills.
Oh, yeah, Phillip Lindsey went to the Dolphins. What the?
It's such a I can't believe I remember when we talked before the show about me still keeping Miami in that list with a question mark. It's like, really? Do they need a guy? Anyway, let's push forward here. No, I think it is a great landing spot. I mean, he's got to have fresh wheels, right? A year and a half after the surgery, an entire year and a half after the surgery. By the time September gets here, and I don't remember when he got hurt, guys. Back then,
it was in like week 2
of 2020.
2020, yes.
It's almost 2 whole years. He's healed this Achilles.
Dumpster fire of a year.
I think the nice thing to take away from a fantasy perspective, I mean, Lord willing, hope he makes lots of money and is a healthy man. But from a fantasy perspective, especially Dynasty moving forward, we get to maybe get a good barometer of how far Achilles injuries have come. That's what I'd say. I think that's a good
Achilles, but yeah.
Considering to your point, I think he's going to get work. I think he might be the guy.
I hope he is. Like I hope so too. Assuming that the Texans don't take one of the several guys we're going to talk about here today. I like, and even then, Marlon Mack he was pretty. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Colts, and So
I mean, he's no Jonathan Taylor, but no, I do like the landing spot for sure. Go ahead.
And this was probably right at the beginning of the Colts' offensive line, like really becoming a offensive force.
Yep.
Anyways, after that, we have Sammy Watkins. He was signed by the Green Bay Packers it was like a $3.95 million deal. Just couldn't give him that extra 0.05
million. You're not a $4 million player, sir.
It's Sammy Watkins. He did nothing, more or less nothing with the Chiefs, and that was with Patrick Mahomes. Went to the Ravens. Did more or less next to nothing with Lamar Jackson too. I mean, he's just a guy. I read this the other day. He hasn't played at a full season since his rookie year, like 7 years ago. And no.
Wow, I didn't realize that. But I feel like it's been a bunch of like 14, 15 game seasons before they added the extra game.
Stat still stands.
That's fair. No, that's true.
I mean,
What
he
else
gets
you got?
so. I mean, you can't say he's like, oh, he's just gone to teams and played with bad quarterbacks. He's played with.
He had luck
He's
for
played with some good
two of those.
quarterbacks.
Heck, luck might have had a lot to do with him getting those 1,000 yards rushing 2 years in a row. Wasn't it luck both
Who?
times? Was luck there?
In Buffalo,
I thought we were talking about Marlon Mack. Sorry.
Sammy Watkins.
Oh, right. My bad.
Yeah, we've moved on from Marlon Mack.
No, we were all kind of on the same page off air before the show in terms of from an NFL perspective, from a Packers perspective. I don't blame them for taking this very cheap dart throw.
A veteran wide receiver at very close to league man. I think he's more or less free.
I'm sure they'd rather have him end up the 2 or the 3. Throw Lazard in that mix at the 2 or 3, and then I don't know what else to do. Maybe the draft. Obviously, we'll talk about some guys tonight. I got one guy that I think might end up there, but go ahead.
Is it Drake London?
No, it's too high. Too high, unless they move up.
You think so? I don't know.
Yeah, he's some people's number one. I'm not saying
let's
he's my
not go
number
down
one,
that path.
but he's some people's number 1 receiver in the draft.
I guess the rest of the news isn't really that fantasy relevant. Frank Gore finally officially retired.
Yeah.
I
heard they had to beat him back with baseball bats, like in the.
They had to hold him down and force him to retire.
Exactly. Frank,
you retire.
Frank,
You're like, I got another year of me, coach. You're gonna retire. Be like, fine.
They're like, you know what? You actually probably do have another year left in you, but financially, this makes so much more. Like, get into stocks, get into TV, get into. I don't think he's a TV guy, to be fair, but anyway. Go ahead.
He'll probably be a coach of some sort, I'm sure. Anyways,
nice
one last thing that is actually fantasy relevant, maybe, is that the Patriots traded for Devante Parker. Forgive me, I forgot to look up the deal. Anyways, yeah.
Who do you think the target leader is there? Ruling out rookies at this point, huh? Myers?
Will he be? I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm saying
Parker, another guy who has failed to really stay healthy. So
no, I'm asking, who do you think will be the target leader in that offense? Excluding rookies.
Probably Parker. Maybe.
I think it's Myers.
Who is that guy that's
Jacoby
that
Myers
on there? Is that what his name is? Okay, it wasn't Jameer Byrd. Okay, cool.
Jacoby Myers.
Notice how excited I am about the whole situation.
Right.
And it's probably going to be like, honestly, if assuming that the Patriots don't pick up another guy in the draft or whatever, that's going to be like a week 1 starter, or relevant in fantasy at least. It's probably going to be like, here it's like this week it's Devante Parker, next week it's Hunter Henry, the week after that, maybe Jonnu Smith. Because last year, Marlon Mack, he did a very good job of just spreading the ball around. No one was really all that fantasy relevant.
You said Marlon Mack. I got you. Wrong Mack. I got you. Mac Jones. I think that's his kind of thing.
Yeah, McCorkle Jones.
I think I know it's weird that it's the same team, but I think he's kind of like a young Brady. Because remember, Brady back in the day was not lighting it up fantasy-wise. No.
Yeah, exactly.
But he really spread the ball around to a cast of not prime players, not superstars.
Yeah, they weren't your household names.
Yeah, a lot of our audience is probably younger, and so they remember is Randy Moss and Wes Welker and Gronk, and I'm like, and
I thought you said they were younger.
And Edelman. No, I'm saying they remember these guys. They don't remember pre-Moss and Welker and all that, where he was winning Super Bowls with Deion Branch. And I forget the other name.
That's the guy I was thinking of.
Deion Branch and David something. David Patton.
Yes, General Patton,
and
yes.
The tight end was actually pretty darn good before Watson. Coates. No, he didn't play with Coates. He might have played with Coates.
Crumpler was there for a little bit, but he was more of a blocker at that point in his career. Anyways, let's move along. Today we're talking about 5 rookies that each of us like, and we actually didn't overlap at any of them.
At all.
We
didn't even plan it. Yeah, right. I tried to put a little feeler out there.
Trying to poke me for information earlier, and that sounded weird, but
he shot me down.
That's what he was doing. I'm like, I'm not telling you who I am.
I'm used to getting shot down when I ask to poke people. It's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're Chris. I never asked you how you doing tonight.
I'm doing amazing. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I have an amazing family, and we've got a long weekend, and it's been great.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm the luckiest man in the world because he's won the lottery.
Really?
No, he didn't. You think I would announce that to anyone? You would never hear from me. I would win the lottery, and you would think that I died. You would think that I got kidnapped and murdered because you would never hear a word from me ever. I just moved to San Diego and live out the rest of my life in peace as a millionaire.
I don't think your frugal nature would allow you to move to San Diego, but you're right. If you had no worries about money, the weather's amazing.
That's totally what I do. I wouldn't tell anyone. I just disappear.
Yeah,
I would stand against a brick wall and take a picture, like a selfie, and like slap it on and make it a postcard, and then it'd be like, "Oh, wish you were here," and you would never know where it was.
I think.
Anyways,
I think they would never know where you were. You were.
Let's do our rookies that we really like. How about you get us started here?
Yeah, I am the leadoff batter, as it were, because we're gonna go in somewhat of an order. Did we agree on that? Yeah, and then we're gonna alternate. I'll start with quarterback, right?
Go for it.
Is that? I have trouble remembering.
I'm looking at the spam text I just got.
Go for cool. It. I did not have a list of teams that need a quarterback. We're not going to dig in that direction that deep. We'll get to that later with running backs and receivers. We'll start here with what I feel like is probably kind of the low-hanging fruit for those of you who have been listening whatsoever. Malik Willis out of Liberty, quarterback.
Chris really likes the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, right.
It's easy to get. Well, I can't blame him.
I'll start with some, let's put it this way. I'll start with some positive affirmations here with Mr. Malik Willis. Number one, draft capital. That absolutely matters in dynasty rookie drafts and startup drafts. I expect Malik Willis to be the first quarterback off the board. I expect Willis to be a top 10 pick. I think if the Panthers want him at 6 or 8, now I'm forgetting. 6. I think they might have to move ahead of the likes of Detroit. I also penciled in several weeks ago, Malik Willis to Pittsburgh. Again, Pittsburgh is going to have to move up quite a bit to get Malik Willis. Now, is this guy, the next, I don't know, Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck? I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence left a sour taste in our mouths, but I digress. No, he's not that. He's going to need some work throwing, although he did a fine job as far as that goes. He had a 48 to 29 passing touchdowns to rushing touchdowns ratio. Let me repeat that. He threw for 48 passing touchdowns in his career, rushed for 29. Obviously, he's a rushing threat. That's why I wanted to point out that he was pretty decent through the air. He was just shy of 1,000 rushing yards, speaking of the rushing, in each of his seasons at Liberty. That would be 2020 and 2021. I've heard comparisons of a right-handed Michael Vick. Michael Vick was not a prolific passer in college, and he showed that in his early career in Atlanta. Yeah, right, in Atlanta. But hey, they were playoff teams multiple times with Vick in Atlanta, and he was the first quarterback to rush for over 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken, in the NFL. I already touched on this a little bit. He's rumored to be going as high as pick 6 to the Panthers, but maybe even Detroit at 2. I don't agree with that. I think Detroit, because I believe they have 3 first-round picks, or at least 3 close to the first round. I think there's one in the 30s.
2 first-round picks, 3 within the top 30.
I think but I think they have pick 34 or something, or 36 or something like that. Like first couple
3
picks
within the top
second.
40.
So I feel like they're going to stand with Goff starting because they have nothing to gain in terms of winning a playoff run this year. And I think they'll stick with Goff and take a guy at the end of the first, beginning of the second, like a Matt Carroll. Is he this? I'm getting my names crisscrossed now. Matt Carroll.
Is it Carroll?
I think it's Carroll or Corral.
It's not Coral?
It's Corral. It's Coral. It's definitely Corral.
So shoot at the Matt Corral.
But gotcha. In that area of the draft, some, I guess, negative things to throw in Malik Willis's way is he couldn't beat out Jarrett Stidham at Auburn because, to refresh your memory, he transferred to Liberty of all places. Yeah, he couldn't beat out Jarrett Stidham, who is in the NFL as of now, I believe. Quick reminder: he played at Baylor a little bit. He couldn't beat out whomever was at Baylor at the time. I've always thought Stidham had a great arm, like a real quick release, like a Romo or a Marino. However, he couldn't beat out Jarrett Stidham, who has done nothing in the NFL, Patriots for a little bit, etc.
Oh, so, that's right. Thank you.
Yep. So obviously, what we're looking at here is rushing ability and in fantasy terms, and especially in dynasty terms. Think Trey Lance. Think maybe he doesn't even get time in this first year. Think more dynasty superflex, really. Like I'm in an interesting position in our dynasty league, where I only have a first round pick and I have no second. I may not even have a third. So, I mean, if this guy's there and I do some movement and he's there in the second or third, sure. But I don't think he will be. I think there's, even in a single quarterback league, people wanted to get this guy. So that's about all I have to say about Willis. He's going to be the first quarterback off the board. I think he's going to be great for fantasy in terms of, again, rushing ability, and he'll probably come around with his arm. He had a highlight reel. I think it was pro day, not the combine. It was pro day, and it was a highlight reel, like 70-yard throw. Just, it looked effortless. He was running out to his left or right. So that's all I've got for Willis. Do you have a quarterback to speak of, sir?
Before we move on from Willis real quick, I've seen him getting mocked in dynasty mock drafts, like one quarterback at that too. Like he's still not going until like the second round.
Okay, hey, that's
not every mock draft I've seen, but
then again, that is single quarterback, folks. That's promising
single
for
quarterback, and also this is also pre-draft too, because that's when the show's coming up.
Yeah, but of course,
you know, it's.
We don't know where he's going. We don't know if he's going to start. We don't know anything right now. But we do know, generally, he should be the first quarterback off the board in the real NFL draft, and he should be the first quarterback off the board
probably,
in any
but not
dynasty draft. Yeah. Not guaranteed. No, not by any means, but I think he will be.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's trading up in the top 10 outside of maybe Seattle to.
I was just going to say Carolina and Seattle. Carolina and Seattle.
I don't think Carolina will either, because the quarterbacks in this draft are not that great. They're not,
But you're talking about the best one of them, and these guys always go
you're
early.
Talking about the highest potential. Let's put it that way.
Okay. No, I would generally agree with that.
There's a distinction there.
We see every single time quarterbacks get pushed up, and I firmly believe this guy's going to go top
my
10.
quarterback is my quarterback is Desmond Ritter. Riddle me this. Riddle
Didn't
me
I
that.
say that
who's
when
not
I get?
afraid to
I guess
draft
that. I guess that.
The guy who's been a Cincinnati quarterback.
You lied to me. You lied to me.
I did. This Ritter fella, I know it's Desmond Ritter. I just wanted to do the riddle.
I knew you were going to do the Cincinnati quarterback. I knew it.
This is a gut call, Chris. But this Ritter feller, he's I've seen him go as high as pick 20 to Pittsburgh. I think it's 20. Pretty sure it is. But I've also seen him getting mocked to Detroit with the last pick of the first round, also in the second. Full disclosure, we are both on the same page here with Malik Willis as being probably the first quarterback off the board, and the quarterback you probably want to draft in Dynasty. I don't know if any quarterback in this draft is going to be a draftable quarterback in
meaning starter, like a starter. Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, maybe as a backup you could draft Malik Willis if he landed with the Falcons.
If you're the type to draft a backup in a single quarterback league, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're on the right track. I agree with you.
Anyways, I just don't know what it is about this guy that's really piqued my interest, but he got knocked around by some bigger programs, and his throwing style is a little long in the tooth, if you will. In the sense that he's got a real long throw. He doesn't have that quick release that Chris really likes, which a quick release for a quarterback is a definite plus. And he's a touch on the small side. He's 6'1", 211. Not tiny. He's not Drew Brees, but he's not. What was that really tiny quarterback? Was it Gus Frerotte?
Whoa, you mean Doug Flutie?
Yes.
I love the Frerotte reference. That was great.
I thought that's who it was, but I was like, no, I think it's Gus Frerotte. Anyways, here's the thing.
Kyler Murray, Desmond Ritter.
Desmond Ritter, that dude can run, man. He can run. He ran a 4.52 40 at the combine, which that's not too bad, man. That's not too bad. He's not really elusive or anything, nor does he have the kind of Cam Newton or a better thing I like is Steve McNair-esque kind of body style that could really absorb some blows in the NFL.
He's big like that?
He does not have that. He does not have that.
I'm following.
But the guy's got some wheels, so if the C's part and he sees a lane there, the dude can take off and get you 10 yards, no problem. My big thing is that like I said, he's it really, like a lot of people, it really depends on where Ritter lands. I put a scenario out. If he lands in Atlanta, it'd be nice to see him. If you could definitely draft Ritter if he would land in like Atlanta, because he could probably sit behind, what's that schmo's name that they signed to be maybe potentially their starter?
Atlanta?
Yeah.
Oh, Mariota.
Yes, Marcus Mariota. But I mean, here's the thing about Ritter. He's got the rushing potential, so that's a plus that's always good for fantasy football. He's got an arm on him, so he can throw the ball. And from everything I read too, he's a real quick decision maker too. So if he landed in Atlanta, and maybe he does kind of, give Marcus Mariota a run for his money, and Atlanta doesn't have that great of an offensive line, but from everything I read about Ritter is that, like I said, he's a real quick decision maker. So he could probably get the ball, like read the blitz, get the ball out quick to your Kyle Pittses, your Olamide Zacchaeus, and whatever. Nobody is playing a wide receiver for Atlanta this year. Because remember, folks, Calvin Ridley is suspended for this season. But so the scenario I put out is like, say you got a Tom Brady and a Matt Ryan and like a Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterbacks for your dynasty squad. Ritter's the perfect guy to draft, if he were to land in like Atlanta or whatever, where on your dynasty squad, he can sit there and like he would in the NFL and like kind of just sit and waiting for your veterans to, age out and retire or whatever, become not as useful. And then you can start Ritter when he becomes an actual starter. And Atlanta too, like if they were to draft Ritter in like the second round or third or whatever, he could easily sit there, and as the team gets better around him, as they improve their offensive line, maybe get some more wide receivers, some more weapons. Maybe Calvin Ridley actually comes back to Atlanta. Kind of sounds like not, but maybe he does. Just saying, like Ritter could be eventually in a year from now, he could be walking on to a pretty, maybe even when he gets a running back too, he could walk into a pretty solid Atlanta offense that's made for him, Just saying, that's why I like him. And, he took a kind of a scrappy Bearcat team, the Cincinnati Bearcats, that is.
For sure, yeah.
To the college playoffs. Yeah, they definitely got punched in the face by, what was it, Atlanta or Alabama, I think. Just kind of took him behind the woodshed. But yeah,
that was but it wasn't in the actual playoff, like for the championship.
It was in the college playoffs.
Top four. Yeah, they made it to top four. That's
for a
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Like Cincinnati to do that.
Well, they're in a Power 5 conference. Let's be clear, they're in a Power 5 conference, right? The ACC. I mean, they're in a Power 5 conference, right? Yeah, for sure. I don't know if so you're right. It's smaller compared to an Alabama, absolutely, or an Ohio State, etc. But still Power 5. No, I think this is.
That doesn't mean they're a big school. Anyways,
I'm going to go on a limb and say this is the best season Cincinnati Bearcats have ever had.
Ever. That's not true. I mean, they had.
You don't think so?
They had Jeremy Schwartzer as their quarterback, and he took them to a national championship.
He just made that up, folks. All right,
so my turn. I just made that up.
You had me for a couple seconds.
I know I
did. So we got our quarterbacks out of the way, right? We're good. We're good.
And I'm not saying that I just want to reiterate that Desmond Ritter is not my favorite quarterback in the draft, but he's just a guy that kind of piqued my interest, and it's a name to definitely stick in the back of your hat on draft day. He's probably going to be a day one pick. I would almost guarantee that
for a dynasty team like me that has a Mahomes as his one and like absolutely nobody behind him. Yeah, I need some depth.
I would.
If it's not this,
I would look for someone who could start this year if that's the case.
Well, you're talking about one bye week, unless Mahomes gets hurt, and if Mahomes gets hurt, my season's over with anyway. So I'm not going to spend a premium pick on a quarterback in a single quarterback league. Is all I'm saying. But my point is, for a team that kind of had, I think you made the point with Garoppolo or Cousins or whatever you said, where it's like if you have an established starter, like keep an eye out for this guy.
I said Brady and Matt Ryan. I chose older
dudes, older established starters. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. I'm up with the first running back we've got here for the night. Real quick, just to kind of get this out of the way, folks, I want to mention that we're going to kind of gloss over Breece Hall. He is clearly the 101 in a dynasty single quarterback. He's also clearly the 101 in a dynasty super flex. There is comparisons of LaDainian Tomlinson, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's not necessarily the same. Me and Josh are going out on that limb. Really? Okay. Yeah, I've heard he's the best. Okay, so generally the best running back prospects. Now, prospect is the key word here. The best running back prospects we have ever seen are, from a analytical perspective, is a Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and lately Breece Hall. Obviously, if you harken back to LaDainian Tomlinson, that's before we had analytics. That's really before we had 24/7 coverage of fantasy and dynasty and all that. So all I'm saying is the ease of the 101 is very easy this year. Breece Hall is your guy. Look at his production. We'll go and move past this because, as me and Josh both put it. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Flip it back. There you go.
Give me two.
Before, like just a real quick, kind of brush up at the 101. If you're pick 101, you are probably the worst team in Dynasty last year. That means that your team needs help. That means that you are probably taking a running back. There's no wide receiver in this draft, and pretty much not in most drafts, that are going to trump you taking a running back at the 101 in Dynasty, right?
Agreed. In fact, you can make that.
So
you can make that argument through the top 5,
and that's why everyone's like Breece Hall is the guy, and definitely is.
Definitely is. Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
I just don't get cute and be like, well, I have 3 good running backs to start with. Great, draft another one, and then you have 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can always trade running backs away if you need wide receiver help in Dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to trade a wide receiver away for a running back because wide receivers are plentiful and running backs are not.
It's a deeper position.
Sorry, quick PSA.
No, guys, this is coming from the Dynasty inaugural Dynasty League. This guy won it in the first year. Now, was there a lot of luck? Sure, but he's right. You
said the wrong word. In my rookie season in Dynasty, I took over an orphan team and took it all the way to the championship.
There you go. So, he's right about running backs. He's right about Breece Hall. Guys, just don't overthink this. Speaking of running backs, I'm going to move on and talk about what
please do.
Generally, I consider this 102. Some folks are putting a wide receiver at that 102. I'm not doing it because, again, I'm going back to what Josh said about RBs being just a very, very valuable commodity. So we're going to talk a little bit of Kenneth Walker here. He's my 102. He's a running back from Michigan State. Michigan State had 0 rushing touchdowns scored by running backs the year before Kenneth Walker got there. Let me reiterate that. In 2020, before Kenneth Walker got to Michigan State, they had 0 touchdowns in an entire season by a running back. They had 2 rushing touchdowns from their quarterbacks at the time, Tyler Hunt and Patton Thorne. I have no idea what that is. Walker himself had 18 touchdowns in 2021. He was second in the nation with 1,636 rushing yards. We'll get to the guy who was first in rushing yards later. But no, go ahead, Josh. What were you going to say?
18 touchdowns that he had, was those total or was that just rushing?
I think that's just rushing. I don't think he caught one.
I think you're right. I couldn't remember. That's why I was asking.
The funny thing is I distinguished between that and all the other guys I did besides Kenneth Walker for some reason in my notes.
No. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It was a legit question.
For sure. If any of those were receiving, it was literally like 1 or 2, and I think it was 0. So I just think
he didn't have a lot of receptions.
No, not at all. So I think this is going to be a story of a guy that's, because I know I like backs that can catch the ball, especially in Dynasty, especially in any form of PPR, which we're all playing nowadays. So, again, don't get me wrong. Breece Hall is the 101. We're going to talk about some other guys that are good at catching the ball, but don't overthink it in the 102 also, in my opinion. If you want to go receiver, we can talk about that in the next couple of weeks. But I firmly believe Kenneth Walker is a stud. I firmly believe you want running backs early in their contract and early in their career in Dynasty. So do just that. Don't overthink it. Take a Kenneth Walker here. He's dominant on the ground. What's a guy we can name? Like a Nick Chubb that just dominates with vision, dominates with burst, dominates on the ground, isn't necessarily receiving back on his team. I think Chubb can do it. I was just going to say that. Yep.
maybe Kenneth Walker is one of those dudes that, and I have one of those on my team too, is that, and it sometimes it happens in the NFL level too with running backs, is like just because they didn't do it in college doesn't mean they can't do it. And I'm going to refer to this again, but we're looking at you, Melvin Gordon.
How about James Conner, who is also on your dynasty squad? James Conner came in, not a guy out of Notre Dame I mean, he was prolific on the ground, and then of course there was the cancer and the injuries, etc. But all I'm saying is he was prolific on the ground and not necessarily through the air. The guy has had, yes, it took the one season he did in Pittsburgh as the bell cow, healthy. He caught 50 or 53 balls, and then I think he did decent last year with Arizona. I mean, I know it was more Chase Edmonds, but anyway. So that's my first running back there in terms of who I like. Kenneth
Chris,
Walker.
I'm going to argue with you here. I'm going to actually contradict your 102 because my 102 is probably going to be Isaiah Spiller.
The running back? Okay.
Yes. The running back out of Texas A&M. Okay. And the reason I say that is because he's got more third down potential than I think your guy does. And it's just mainly based more on his college work than as a whole than anything else. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the one thing that Spiller doesn't have is he doesn't have a crap ton of touchdowns. He only has 10. And
I would argue there's two
that
things he doesn't have.
Season.
But go
10
ahead.
10 in a single season. That was his freshman year. Mm-hmm. But otherwise it was 9 and 6. But I mean, and he's kind of a bigger back. He's 6 foot, 217. And his 217, I think, could be a bit bigger, but for a 6 foot running back. But he's you can work on bulk. You can bulk guys up. He didn't run the 40 at the combine, but let's just say he's no Usain Bolt on the field. He may not even be as fast as Derrick Henry, who is not the fastest running back in the NFL. But he can catch. His pass protection is good enough, and he's got power for days. PFF has his pro comp that would be his NFL comparison as Damian Harris, but the NFL Network has his pro comp as Rashad Penny. I think this is everything I read and from what little film I can actually find on him, because it's really hard to find game film on rookie prospects. I don't know why, but it is. I think he's more like Cornell Patterson, but as more of a running back than a wide receiver. How do you feel about that? Huh?
I think he's slow.
I don't think he's as slow as you think he is.
Dude, I mean, his 40 was pretty bad, so there's that. He ran a 4.63.
What was his 40? Because I couldn't find it.
4.63.
Where did you find that at?
I'm pretty sure he had a pro day, dude.
Oh,
Scouts clocked Isaiah Spiller.
I was looking for combine.
When they say scout, okay. It could have been the pro day. I'm not going to scroll down the article. It's not important. That could be improved upon. I think the story might be, Josh, and forgive us, folks, if we got busy personal lives, but I think what happened is he had a pro day and chose not to run at the combine, because why would he hurt his draft stock more? So that's my concern. That's what's going to distinguish him between 102, 103, 104. Or I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Not 10. I'm meaning the RB 1, 2, 3, 4, and on down the line.
That's
I don't have a guy to put it 3 or 4 above him now, but I definitely will put Kenneth Walker there. Walker had a 4.38 40. Walker's like that. Like who was it? A kind of a bigger guy. Was it Chubb? I don't think it was Taylor, but it was a guy a year or so ago.
We were talking about Isaiah Spiller here.
I'm almost done. But Walker ran a 4.38, but that was unexpected. So that kind of raised his stock a little. Whereas usually what you want to see is just confirmation. Did he run the ballpark that I thought when I watched the film? But go ahead if you've got more to say about Spiller, please.
Oh, not much. What I do have left to say is that, I mean, like we kind of went through this before in the green room before we started recording. But there aren't a lot of teams that are really looking for a running back. I mean, Atlanta is definitely looking for a back. Period. Houston maybe still, even though we kind of we both love Marlon Mack, but maybe he's not their answer. I mean, Tampa Bay could be looking to maybe replace Fournette. Right now, I think Fournette is solid where he is, but you never know. Real quick, before let's just round it out real quick. I've seen Spiller being drafted in the mid first round in Dynasty mock drafts. Um, that seems reasonably acceptable. Obviously, destination is going to be huge for Spiller here. But if he lands in the right situation where the offensive lines open up lanes for him, he could be extremely useful. That was another thing, is that he's kind of indecisive, so he likes his big holes. I mean, like every running back does, but he's really where he shines. Chris, you believe you had another running back or two, right?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of running heavy in this show. Real quick to mention a couple of, just to touch on Tampa real quick, and first round running backs. They're like taboo. And I mean this from a real NFL draft perspective, not fantasy, folks. Let's be clear. So all I'm saying is, if there's a teams at the end of the first that are in a win now window with a 40+ year-old quarterback, those are the guys you want to take a first round quarterback from an NFL and a fantasy perspective. Those are the guys you want on your roster. That's why.
Quick, Chris, who's older, you or Tom Brady?
Me, by a little, by 2 or 3 years. Yes.
Go for it.
Let's move forward. A couple of the teams that I think needed running back: Chiefs, Saints, Miami. Question mark.
Chiefs. We did not cover Chiefs, but yeah,
we did not cover that. Seattle. I think I don't think Penny is going to preclude them from taking a running back. But let me go on with my second running back.
Go for it.
I've got Rashad White. That's Rashad with a CHAAD. Rashad White from Arizona State.
Rashad.
Rashad.
Like he's from Minnesota.
You're welcome, sir. Now that's your name. So anyway,
Sorry,
so
buddy.
couple of key stats here, key points I'm going to mention here about Mr. Rashad White out of Arizona State. He ran a 4.4840. That's a 4.4840 yard dash. That's 82nd percentile. Playerprofiler.com has his closest comparison as David Johnson. Pretty good young career, David Johnson. He's got a 127.1 burst score. That's the 87th percentile. I'm not going to get into how they calculate that score. Here's where I start getting the highlights, in my opinion. 43 catches in his final season at Arizona State. That's 2021. He was second on the team, running back. Second on the team with 43 catches. Granted, I think they had a bit more of a running quarterback, but still, that's nothing to sneeze at in college. In fact, that's amazing production through the air. He had 16 touchdowns total, one of them receiving. He only had 1,006 rushing yards, but as I mentioned a second ago, his starting quarterback was a dual threat, and he ran the ball 138 times to White's 182, which led the team. So he was out in route. That's fair, especially if you're talking about average, because they play less games. But we're talking about Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall and people just like racking up the yards. 1,600 yards, 1,500, 1,800 in the past. But that's what they do in college. And if you want a guy to dominate, the one thing you want is a guy that dominates, especially if he's playing against like SEC or Pac-12 or Big 12 competition, Exactly. So again, only 1,006 rushing yards, but again, his starting quarterback was a dual threat. He ran the ball 138 times to White's 182. So at the end of the day, this guy was not off the field, but he was taking other snaps in terms of catching the ball and his quarterback taking rushes from him. So he is deceivingly very efficient on the ground, because you look at his college stats and you're like, he's efficient, but it just doesn't have the dominance that the other guys do. But look at that receiving. Yeah, I'm all over Rashad White as, I think he's my 3 or 4. We'll be able to get in that next couple of weeks in terms of dicing that down. But yeah, he's up there in terms of running backs, not overall.
Yowzer.
I am definitely taking receivers ahead of Rashad White. Let me be clear.
Okay.
You don't like Rashad White?
Well, I'd rather have another White, like a Xavier White
guy and Spiller.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree.
But I like Tamir White. You know why? Because I apparently like tall running backs that are 6 foot. He's only 215 pounds, whereas Isaiah Spiller, if you remember, was 217. But Zamir White is a beast. He may only be 215 pounds, but his like solid muscle. If you're the sucker that has to be asked to tackle him, he's gonna make you pay for it. He's got a little bit of agility. He can make defenders miss, but he's not a LaShawn McCoy. He's not going to break his ankles to somehow change direction at top speed and then keep on going. He's a power back. Let's not get anything. Let's not like dice our words about this, even though I'm doing that exactly at the moment. He doesn't have a lot of work in the receiving game. He's totaled just 17 receptions in 3 years with the Bulldogs. And his pass protection is one of his two biggest weaknesses as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things, just because he wasn't asked to doesn't mean he can't, but I'm assuming with a guy like him, if you remember, what's that Green Bay? A.J. Dillon, his receiving wasn't his greatest asset coming out of college, but yet he caught 34 balls last year in part-time work for the Packers, or 30-something,
He can do it. Serviceable.
Anyways, Zamir White's other biggest weakness is his injury history. And here's the thing that I didn't like about this. So, yes, he tore his right ACL in 2017. He tore his left in 2018. The good news about both of those things is they're in the past, like when he was in high school. It's not like it happened like last year or the year before.
And it's like ACLs,
Right, but I mean, he's far enough removed from them that, like, I'm not really viewing that as and he played all 15 games last year for the Bulldogs. So, and he logged 106 carries and a career high of 9 receptions. That's right, folks. 9. Half of his receiving work came last year. But here's the thing: he scored 11 touchdowns in each of the past 2 seasons. So it's not great, but I like White that could be one of those backs that maybe he gets into the pros and all of a sudden he can catch, like A.J. Dillon or the aforementioned at the beginning of the show, Melvin Gordon.
Perfect mention. I was just going to say that. I was just saying, don't forget Gordon was not.
Yeah,
and dude, he's caught 50 balls a couple times.
Had a really teacher in Danny Woodhead, but because Woodhead really,
I kind of forgot about that marriage. Yeah.
God, I've seen Zamir White go in rookie dynasty mock drafts in like the beginning second, which seems about right for as of right now as a guy that is just going to be viewed as a first and second down back. That's good, but I mean maybe he goes to like the Dolphins, who has a slew of third down backs. And they just need a power guy, or I don't know, maybe Dallas takes him and they put Zeke out to pasture. Then Chris gives me a trade offer for a 3rd-round pick for Zeke, and I'm like, no, I deny that trade. That's not going to happen. I'm just trolling Chris here, but sure. But maybe he goes to, I don't know, like Seattle or Kansas City. They could really use a thumper at the goal line. I mean, Zamir White's probably not getting drafted in late third, early 4th round or whatever in the NFL draft. But it's a guy to keep an eye on, first and second down guy. Cool, I'm down with it.
Yeah.
I think I view him more of an A.J. Dillon-esque kind of guy. Just a big guy that's not exactly the fastest in the world, but he can get it down on the ground. Because I think you have one more running back, right?
I do. I was just going to say, let's close out the running backs here because I'm a little running back heavy, and let me talk about Mr. Lou. Yes, we will. Lou Nichols, running back out of Central Michigan. He was only a 3-star recruit, overshadowed by Jaron Mangum, a more sought-after running back prospect coming out of high school. However, yeah, exactly. Just go back a few years. Bear with me. But he did have offers from Pitt, Purdue, Cincinnati, Indiana, Minnesota. So it wasn't like he didn't have big, 1A offers, if you will, power conference offers. What do you want to call it? Small, big, I don't give a rat's. Recruiting was his reason for picking Central Michigan over these bigger schools. You want to see a back dominate at a smaller school, and that's exactly what he did. He had 40 catches in 2021 and 18 total touchdowns, 2 of them receiving. So again, going back to kind of what I was touching on with Rashad White, You want to see this receiving work in the NFL. Yes, there's guys out there that didn't do it in college because college doesn't like throw the running backs, but that can end up doing it like an A.J. Dillon or Josh's previous rookie. So I'm very high on Lou Nichols from a value perspective. You don't need to go up and get this guy. I think this is a perfect guy to keep an eye on if you're competitive dynasty team. If you're just trying to fill up a running back roster, but you want to maybe spend up a tad. You want to spend up a little. You want to take your second or your third. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just said it. I was going to say, like, where do you think he'll go in dynasty drafts? Because I have no idea who this guy is. I've never seen him on.
I have a tendency to get scared that anytime I like a guy, the fantasy community, or should I say dynasty community, is going to end up kind of rising on him. So I'm worried he's going to go in the second, but I don't think you have to worry about him going in the first. Does that answer the question well enough?
I don't think you have to worry about this dude going in the third.
Because of where he played college football at?
No, because I haven't seen him in a mock draft to this date. No, that's not saying that he won't be in a mock draft.
No, that's a very good point. I had the same problem.
Only go through like a lot of mock drafts only go through like 3 rounds. So I'm just.
That's a very valid point. I had the same problem. Doing research for the show.
But here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. You're doing good. Like you're finding a nice deep dive here. Like I'm just like I think you're.
Absolutely. And to answer your question better, I worry that he won't become that as the next couple of weeks roll on. What's the draft? 28th? I forget. Of April. I worry he's going to rise a tad. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting at the 110 just for context. I'm sitting at the 110 and I need running backs. However, I'm open to move either up or back. So that's neither here nor there. No, keep your eyes up for Lou Nichols. I'm going to go and plant a little bit of a flag here. Don't spend up for him. Let the value come to you. But just look at his college numbers. Look at what he did. Look at what he was doing coming out of high school where people didn't see what he was because he had a guy in front of him. And, man, he's really efficient. And 40 catches is great. So that's all I have to say about Mr. Lou.
Cool. Let's move along to the wide receivers. My first one is George Pickens. Pickens, I say. Chris, I'm going to need your help on this one for a second. I found that Mike Williams of the Chargers, Mike Williams, ran a 4.49 in his pro day. I couldn't find a draft. Excuse me, I couldn't find a draft 40 time for him in his draft way back in 2017. Yeah, it's been 2017. Weird. Anyways, Mike Williams is the guy who, quote, takes the top off the defenses, end quote, for the Chargers at the moment. Why can't Pickens, what?
Even though he's big.
Yeah. Why can't Pickens, who ran a 4.47, do the same? Granted, he didn't run a 4.29 or whatever the NFL draft record is or whatever. But for a guy who's 6'3", I'll take it. I just there was a couple of things that I read about Pickens that was like, yeah, like he's probably not your guy to be the field stretcher or whatever. I'm like, really? With a 4.47?
At that size.
6'3"?
At that size, yeah.
Why not? Here's the thing. And early in Pickens' career in college, he was a beast. He tore his ACL last spring, so he didn't have a lot of work last year in 2021, which is driving his draft stock down. I've seen NFL mock drafts, him going in the late first, but more like in the second. His biggest faults are his frame, his route running, and his speed. Which once again, 4.47 speed for a guy at 6'3", I don't know, man. I think some of these draft nicks are getting real picky about speed when you look at his size. But he's right around 200 pounds. He could use a little bit of, use to beef up a little bit, and his routes aren't crisp. But from everything I read, his route running thing is more of like a nitpick. Be like, well, we have to find a fault somewhere. So, well, he didn't health is a concern because he tore his ACL in the spring of 2021, and he only ran 37 routes or whatever it was in 2021. Blah blah blah. I'm like, he helped. Didn't the Bulldogs win the national championship this year? Pretty sure he helped do that.
Did they? Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, pretty sure he helped him do that. He helped him get there at least. And I don't know, man. I just like. I think it's a blessing that is for as a Colts fan at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if Pickens makes it in the second round, they should do something to try and trade up and make sure that they secure him because I think he's going to be a great receiver for him. Pair him up with Michael Pittman, you know, and what's his face, Paris Campbell, who's probably not going to play a snap for the Colts this season yet again. But
Mm-hmm.
if he does stay healthy, be all right. Pickens is currently going in dynasty mock drafts in the middle of the first round, which I think it's kind of pertinent to kind of be like, well, I don't participate in these because there's no team attached to these names, and I know these experts are whatever. They're
That's the point.
pontificating.
They're trying to predict where they're going to land.
But I mean, like Pickens, like. Honestly, I could see him going to like the Chiefs or the Packers or whatever at the end of the first. Well, yeah, or even maybe the Lions and pick 32. Get that secure that 5th-year option. Whatever. Anyways, that's Pickens for you. I really like him. Sorry, I don't have much more to say about him, but he's a really good prospect.
I was looking into him a little bit. I saw a little bit of scuttlebutt about him being skinny. I think he can put on weight.
Yeah, I mean, he's
fine.
6'3", 200 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I went down that path. He's a little wiry, but they said the same thing about AJ Green. Ironically, same school. He was actually playing on a scholarship named after AJ Green. I see some similarities. Yeah. At Georgia. Same school.
Cool.
Let's move on. I've got just one wide receiver on my list, and then we'll finish up with your last wide receiver, I believe, right?
I have 20 more wide receivers.
No, that's a lie. So my guy is Chris Olave. A little bit of a low-hanging fruit here. He's going to be, he's going to be a first-round pick. I think that's completely safe to say.
I don't know if it's that low-hanging, but
that's fair. I don't have off the top of my head in front of me, but he's more like a lot of folks wide receiver 4 behind the likes of Drake London. And I think you talked about a guy. Forgive me, the name is escaping me right now. That's a higher pick probably, but he also played with another. Garrett Wilson, there you go.
His teammate.
I was about to say his teammate. So he was shared time. I don't want to say overshadowed necessarily by a teammate like that. Despite only playing 7 games because of COVID, Big Ten in 2020, he still had 729 receiving yards and 7 receiving touchdowns.
That's over 100 yards a game, Chris.
Yeah, he has a nose for the end zone. He can play anywhere. He's a little undersized at 6'1", 185, but I don't think there's an NFL team or a fantasy manager out there that's trying to put him as their alpha number 1, blah, blah, blah. He's 6 foot, 185, but he ran a 4.39 40. His best comparable player on Player Profiler is Stefan Diggs. He is widely regarded as the best route runner in the draft. So the speed and the route running are what start piquing my interest.
I thought it was more of a Drake London was a route runner, but I think he's more of a size guy than a route runner. Anyways.
Yeah, I think London is more of a size speed specimen, he's a big dude that can run. Absolutely, Drake London's great. I'm not even saying
we're not here to talk about Drake London.
Of course.
Olave
is how they're saying
olive oil.
No, definitely Olave. Or I haven't heard him say it, but that's how everybody else is saying it. So, again, he's been mocked to Dallas quite a bit. I think they're at, 20, 22? I forget. I should know as a Dallas fan.
22-ish.
I think it's 22. We'll push forward. So just, again, that area of the first round.
24.
And a guy you can get a steal. I think he's going to be a lot like a Brandon Cooks. Again, the player profile compared him to Diggs. Diggs, I believe, is, if not the best route runner, one of the best. So, yeah, high on Olave. There's been some Ohio State receivers that have done a little bit. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Olave.
All right, Chris. I gotta say, I gotta type. And it's a big guy with some speed. And so my last guy is Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. Yep. He's when I say speed, I mean we're getting a little subjective here.
Speed, objective. Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure that out one of these days of subjective versus objective. But he ran a 4.55 at the combine. What I don't know, like he's 6'2", 225. So that speed is not really that bad. I mean, what he doesn't have in speed, he makes up for in size.
Size and competitiveness for sure. Yeah, go
Is
ahead.
is he Calvin Johnson? No, he's not a 6'5" like running a 4.4 out there. No, no one outshines Megatron. He was a
In
beast.
terms of size speed comparison, absolutely. For
Yeah,
sure.
no one's going to do that. Though there's two things I find confusing about Burks though. If he's a big dude, which he is, why did he run most of his routes out of the slot in Arkansas? 77% of his routes precisely.
Easier to get open. You have two directions you
Well,
can go.
without looking into this too hard, is what I was thinking is that maybe he was running out of the slot and he was getting short, quick passes because their offensive line wasn't that great. You know, it could have just been one of those like this is the
And/or
easiest way to
quarterback.
get our best receiver the ball in his hands. You know, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Could just be coaching. Coach offensive philosophy too. It's a lot of things that it could have been. PFF knocks Burks on his route running, which is maybe a fair assessment. He doesn't not coming from the greatest route tree in Arkansas. It was pretty limited. The second thing that confuses me is why I can't figure out a second thing that was confusing me. He's a big guy. He's got speed, but he needs to learn some polish in his routes. But that's something
That's
that
a
you
lot
can
of
teach a
rookie
guy.
receivers,
You can teach a guy to run routes. Not everyone, but you can do that. You can't teach size, which he has. I mean, he could have a little bit more bulk in his frame, but 225 for a 6'2", that's not bad. So there's at least 3 teams in the back half of the first round, which is kind of where I've seen him going in mock drafts. It was actually higher, but then he ran that 4.55 at the combine, which, you know what? Maybe he was just having a bad day, or maybe he wasn't trying to go like 110% in the 40 time at the draft because he didn't want to hurt himself. It's hard to say. There's been guys who just like they look fast on tape, and then they get to the combine and they're like, oh, he's actually a little bit slower than we thought. Who knows?
I want a guy. I want a guy to run. I want a guy to run every drill. But it's 2022. For the past handful of years, it doesn't usually happen like that. You're going to have a couple of premium prospects not run a couple drills. Like, I mean,
yeah.
Heck, I even think Pickett, the quarterback, was like, no, I don't want you to measure my hands again. Or should I say, I think he did have his hands measured. Now he's like labeled baby hands. And it's like,
no, he had them measured once. And then they're like, oh,
Bode?
his hands are small. Like, think Mark Sanchez. And then they measured him again, and they're like, oh, they're actually a half-inch bigger. I'm like, it's a half-inch, dog. Like, it ain't that big. It ain't that big of a difference.
Crazy, but yeah, some guys don't want to do certain drills or go to the combine at all because they felt like they put up great tape and/or pro day. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and we that's a discussion for another day. But so I mean, there's 2 teams that have 2 picks in the first round in the second half of the back end, and that would be Green Bay or Kansas City. And honestly, I could see Burks being great for either one, either Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. I blanked on his name there for a second, if you couldn't tell.
Just kind of double check.
I mean, I've seen him in Dynasty mocks, kind of. I've never seen him slip past pick 8 overall, which I could see him doing depending on the destination and where he lands. Like if for some reason the Panthers have a brain fart and we're like, oh, we're going to take Treylon Pickens.
In the real NFL draft. Sorry, I was literally looking at rookie rankings while you were saying that. I was like, no, number 8. Okay, I buy it.
Yeah, I mean, so you're gonna have to spend up a little bit to get Burks on your team, but I think he's a guy worth having. I mean, honestly, in a dynasty rookie draft overall, I think there's maybe 3 running backs that should be going in the first round. Depending on landing spot, there could easily be more, but
do you think
the rest of it's going to be wide receivers and maybe a quarterback? What?
Do you think one of those first round running backs is Kenneth Walker?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. I have one last follow-up question because I know we're running long. And I know this is not the point in the season off season to do it, but foot to the coals, do you have a top 3 receivers, having said all this about Burks, etc.?
Not really.
You don't have an order. I'm
Not
not going to lie.
at the
I don't necessarily do either. I'm more honed in on running backs right now. I just feel like there's so many receivers. I don't want to say throw a dart. Let me be clear. I think there's a lot of non-dart throws at the top. It's just deep. And I'm like, where can I go wrong? I mean, I guess maybe one of these guys, one of the bigger guys ends up being slow and
a draft, like where they're going, and the receivers. It's kind of like
exactly. This is
I'm not going to
pre-NFL
pollute
draft.
my brain with that. I'm going to focus on the running backs, maybe some quarterbacks. Look at the kind of.
We'll have more of an answer for that after the actual NFL draft, I think. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
it's good to look at the wide receivers now and see what they bring to the table, but at the same time, it's like. I don't know if they land in a real crowded, like if the Giants took a receiver with their first round pick, I don't know why they would, but if they did, it'd be like, well, I don't love them going there.
Unless you just hate Galladay. Right. I get it. Yep. No, you're right. There's so many teams that probably kind of have a guy, and a lot of these guys could end up the 2 or 3 on said roster. But there's a lot of talent here at the receiver. I know it's not a great draft overall, especially quarterback. Running backs run out real quick. It's a defensive-heavy draft. I get it, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a repeat of 2022 or what was the other huge year like AJ Green and Julio. Anyway, I like to see what Olave ends up doing, but it's very convoluted at the top of the receivers right now. What else do you have to say,
next
sir?
week we will have some more guys to talk about, whether we love them or hate them. I will reluctantly divulge my sleeper running back that everyone should be drafting in their dynasty.
I think I divulged mine today. It was Mr. Lou. Mr. Lou.
Well, that's great. You shot your shot a little too early because I'm doing mine next week.
How was my
and you're gonna be like, of course you said that, and I'm gonna be like, that's right, but everyone should really take a strong, hard look at this guy, especially if he lands in the right spot. Anyways,
AKA Josh's guy is better than mine.
I didn't say that. No, I just really like my guy.
Like value
Didn't
wise,
say that at all.
You think he's a deeper dive, and you think could end up being more valuable? That's interesting to me. That challenge I want to meet. We'll see about
you're
Lou.
gonna hear what I have
he's gonna
to say
go after
him.
Lou.
That's next week. That's next week. We're gonna do that next week. Until then, folks, check us out on YouTube. If not on YouTube, you can check us out in podcast format. Pretty much wherever you can, except for you, Amazon Music. You know where you can go. Have a good night, folks.
Have an amazing weekend.